Hi, I'm Matthew Mercer, and you're watching the Absolution Network.
We are the Sand Bandits of the Southern Sand Tribe, and we look for this beast, Appa. Anyone with whereabouts of his knowledge or existence shall give me the information or pay the ultimate price. And one more thing, welcome to AnimeNEXT.
Yeah. Toonami's back, bitches. Wait, did you say Toonami's back, bitches? That's the official hashtag if you missed it. To celebrate time's return to television.
Welcome to AnimeNEXT 2014, and I'm afraid I've got some bad news. Here's your host, Thomas Mattis.
Hey there, my Toonami generation. Yes, that's time. It's time for interview time here at AnimeNEXT 2014. I'm here with a man who's played many great roles, including one of the reviews we recently did, Iron Man: Rise of the Technovirus. He was Iron Man himself, Matthew Mercer.
Hey guys, how you doing?
So thanks for being at the con with us.
Thank you for having me.
To start off, you have an extensive theater background, work, of course, being in LA, doing theater and improv. So how did that help your voice acting career, when you sort of maybe translating to doing more voice work?
Well, for one thing, for voiceover, part of the key to it is being able to deliver a believable performance that's just a touch heightened. You don't have the crux or the toolbox you have on camera where you can internalize, and show things. It all has to be through the voice to really convey it, but you don't want to go over the top and go hammy. So I felt theater was really good voice training in that regard. Proper breathing technique and stuff, and improv, and all those different things just really help build proper imagination, or help at least continue it, because you don't have losing that in the adulthood area. And imagination is so important for voiceover because you're alone in a booth filled with foam and a microphone by yourself most of the time.
Yes.
You have to be able to put yourself in that position and feel where the character is, and I feel that's all been a tremendous bonus, a big boon to me in going into this career.
Now, of course, you also are an extensive gamer, including being a big D&D'er, I hear.
Oh yeah.
So, did being a D&D'er, because part of it is it's improv, but it's also you're creating these fantasy storylines, creating these characters, and getting into these characters. How did that help, if any, into your voice acting career?
One is it's just more practice in having to find a range. When you're DMing a game, you have so many NPCs you have to perform and try and keep them varied and different so players can be engaged and not get confused and overlap. So it was kind of a cool practice growing up and DMing and finding new voices and new types of characters. Like a wide range from everything from like the strange old shopkeeper to like the lowly British villain. Things you just kind of practice and learn through the years. So that was tremendously helpful, and some of those voices I've directly carried over into auditions and booked characters that are the voices purely based on an NPC or a character that I played in the past.
Could you bring one up right here? Like, what character was based off a character you created in D&D?
Well, the one that pops in the head right now is a character named Natibe Curios. That was an NPC that was like a very low, gruff, kind of guttural, emotionless assassin character that I played for a campaign as the DM, and that incorporated into Kiritsugu Emiya in Fate Zero, so that was fun. And a campaign I'm running right now with a bunch of voice actor friends like Travis Willingham, Laura Bailey. Travis's character Gerald, who's a half-giant barbarian, has this very low, kind of London gravelly voice, and I've used that for a recent role in Lord of the Rings game. It's my old character. So I also adopt other people's characters.
Well, one of the big things that you are a part of that I'm such a fan of is the 2011 Thundercats.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of, I'm just saying, stupid people at Warner Brothers who, because it didn't sell toys, because heaven forbid, you have a lot of girls watching your show. That's great.
Yeah. Many silly reasons why that show didn't continue, but it was a fun run while we had it.
Well, did anything ever shock you or what? Because I'm sure you had to see some of the episodes, in particular, episode 3, which the fact that this is supposed to be a kids show and we're having this lesson on death is amazing. So did anything shock you, bring you to tears or anything while working on that show?
Yeah, well, the Pedalar episode in particular, that one you're mentioning, was incredibly intense. It was one of those episodes when as we were recording it at one of the booths, it was all, this is really good. This is a good episode. We're all getting thumped over it. And then there's the back history to Tiger episode that I thought was really emotional. Robin Acton Downs, who plays Monroe on the show, also got to be my father in that one, and we got a lot of really cool emotional scenes in there. So those are the really big emotional beats. But for me personally, as a person who loved Thundercats growing up, not only just being able to be Tigra, but being able to say Sam Flange and have a whole scene off the parody of the classic Thundercats Sam Flange blooper. To be able to be part of that resurgence was quite fantastic.
Well, what particular did you do to make Tigra your own?
Well, to make my own, I talked a lot with the creators of the show and the writers, and they wanted this character that was arrogant, and he was very self-assured to a point where it was almost difficult to like him, but still like him in spite of it. And that was the line we had to write with the character. We didn't want to alienate the audience, but you wanted to have him a strong contrast to Lino, and that way he can learn and grow. Start from that point and then have him learn his lessons and eventually come to more of a balanced individual. So it was finding that line and for me being able to play with his kind of slide, sarcastic wit and his means of constantly just trying to find a way to make himself look good in each circumstance. It was fun.
And I find it really interesting because it's one of those things where it's one of the few times where I've ever seen the love lost storyline, which is you have the two main character and a love interest, and you think they're going to get together. Oh no, we're going to take Chitara and bring her with Tigra, and it worked, which most I don't think really worked to do that storyline justice. But the voice acting and everything made it work. Now, mind you, I also like to think that if the series continued, there was a feeling like maybe Tigra's past would come back to haunt him, being what his ancestry was. But of course, we'll never know. You know, and you will never tell.
We were greenlit for a second season. It's like scripts were being written. I knew where the season was going. So knowing where it was going to go is sad. Even more sad to know that it's not going to get there. But there was a lot of really, really good talent behind that show. A lot of great writers and some cool ideas that, I don't know, maybe we'll kickstart it.
Well, maybe because Toonami's back, we can hashtag bring back 2011 Thundercats.
Do it, please. It'd be awesome.
So I think the final question I'll ask you is, one thing I always love asking voice actors is, well, right there was a great example, is a flub. So what are some of your great flub stories, funny stories from the booth that you enjoy telling? Maybe one as epic as Scott McNeil's, I'm Wolverine and I'm going to go, this big war!
Oh, no. Booth farts out.
Yeah.
I would say, as far as bloopers go, I actually grew up with a stutter, and it took me a lot of years of speech therapy to get over that. So every now and then it still creeps in and can give me a problem in the booth. But as far as fun bloopers go, two that come to mind. One, I was working on a game called Fist of the North Star Ken's Rage, where I voiced the character Ray, who slices people with his fingertips and stuff. This technique where he does that. And I guess the script didn't quite make it through interpretation by the English producer, and we were just reading through the script, and I got to a line that I just, shouted it out as I cold read it. It was, "There's no way you can stop me from getting my fingers inside you." To which we awkwardly paused and thought maybe we should work on rewriting this line. And the other one was for Fire Emblem Awakening, for the ending sequence where I voiced Crom in that one. And there's a sequence where he pulls, there's a POV of the player, and Crom pulls you close into his face, and he says a final line to them. But the English interpretation wasn't matching the lip flap. There's very specific lip movements and animation, and so we were trying to workshop it. And I'm watching it over and over again, and Patrick Seitz, who's the director, is trying to figure out what works for this. And, I got it, just roll, I got it. All right, great, go. Wait for the third beep, and it fit perfectly, and I just went, "I can see your butthole." And it matched the lip flap perfectly. I didn't make it in the final version, sadly, because I don't think it was what they were going for with the ending, but I'll always have that.
I would have bought the game.
It changes the context to the end, really.
Oh, you always go for those type of games. I think it would change the rating as well.
Yeah, probably. Nintendo might have been a little weird on that
technical
one.
about that. Well, thank you so much for joining us for a little bit of time. Visiting AnimeNEXT. I had a great time at Next.
Oh, you guys rock it out. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having us. And my Toonami generation, I'll be back with another interview. Stay golden, folks.
おはようございます。最初はヨーグです。
Windows. What we're going to do is a little quick video. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, what time is it? And you say it's Tofu time, really loud. Okay. All right, guys. 1, 2, 3. What time is it, guys? It's Tofu time! Oh, crap. Morphin' time. No! Alright guys, hi, my name is John Ramos. I've been doing this for about 3 years, right about now. I'm always here at AnimeNEXT, it's also a good time. I've been doing Toku Time for about, 3 years. I usually have other people with us here too, but they didn't want to show up, so.
It's Decade's fault.
It's always, blame Decato. It's always Decade's fault.
Decade's fault.
Most of the time it was Daikie's fault.
So usually we usually do like about an hour and a half panel, but this time it's about an hour. So yeah, I know, boo earns. But this is what we're gonna be covering today. It's not really over the top, but it's up to current Sentai stuff and Kamen Rider stuff as well. What we are gonna have. And we're gonna go Bust It. What went wrong with Go Busters? There are some people who do like Go Busters. I'm not gonna lie to you.
It was Black Puma.
Yes, that movie made it though.
Coming from the Jew, it was Black Puma.
We got Kamen Rider Wizards, please. We got Akiba Ranger, the People's Sentai.
Yes.
We've got Kyoruga over here. What went right? There we go. Just missing the female degrees, right? We've got Kamen Rider Gaim, Fruit Ninja Extreme. We got Tokuger Choo Choo, motherfifers! Goragon, the PG edition. That's actually an adult Toku, which is always fun. And of course, we always have WTF Toku. Just raise your hands. Who was here last year? Everybody here. Okay. I talked about a certain clip last year about Santa Claus. I don't know if anyone remembers that.
Oh no!
I have it.
No, I thought that was Uncle Mr. Brown.
You made me
Mr. Brown. No, we have one that it's I could not find it, but I found it on Dailymotion. So.
Oh god.
You just made me very, very happy.
All right, who isn't a fan of Toku here?
Huh?
Okay, there's one guy right there. He has a belt on. But anyway, just to go over what Toku is. I don't know if you can see it, guys. Lights, please.
Everyone at my school.
Anyone have lights? Lights in the back?
Right behind you guys.
Yeah.
It's going to be dark.
It's gonna be dark.
Toku, After Dark.
All right, that's good. Okay. So, Toku 101, for those who don't know, which I'm pretty sure you guys do know, it originated early in Japanese theater. Modern Toku did not happen until Godzilla's arrival in the 50s. That's when it started. Our current Toku is when it started. Woohoo! But in the Japanese theater, it was all like puppetry and wires and stuff like that. Also using, they believe, firecrackers to signal explosions, which is what you kind of see nowadays. Basically, it means special effects. It focuses on live-action sci-fi, action, fantasy, or horror genres. General themes include kaiju, which we're all familiar with as giant monsters, kaijin, which is supervillains as the central character, and yokai, which is apparitions, spirits, or demons. And those pictures right there are of, there's actually a museum where you can actually walk in an actual city in Japan. It's really cool. You can't like damage it or anything and blow it up. So, I'm sorry, guys. That's what I said. That's what I said. So, Toku 101 continues here with American Toku. Came along. Hell yeah. That was a good series. So it came along during the success of Power Rangers, which I'm pretty sure everyone knows in this room. I'm pretty sure you all got turned on to Toku because of Power Rangers in some way or shape or form. Also, some do include some American Tokus are the tattooed teenage alien fighters from Beverly Hills. No comment. We got the Mystic Knights of Tirnanog. I love that show. That was a good one. Big Wolf on Campus. Anyone Big Wolf on Campus?
Yeah, I remember
Got a
that.
few, okay. And of course, Animorphs, which is something like Power Rangers, where they're morphing into different animals. VR Troopers is also there, which is also...
What about Metal Heroes? Metal Heroes.
Superheroes, yeah. Grid, was it Gridman or something like that?
Grid Fighter.
Grid Fighter.
What about Beetleborgs?
Beetleborgs all there with B-Fighter. There's so many of them. It's absolutely crazy, but I'm just trying to get the weird ones out of there. English language shows that are also considered Toku here is the Thunderbirds, which uses the wireframe, Doctor Who, which of course... Got Doctor Who fans in the house. Also, Lost in Space. Yes.
Did you know that actually the TARDIS can be heard in some episodes of Mega Ranger?
Yeah.
Really?
I got that from Geek Crash Course.
Nice. I think I watched their videos a long time ago. They had one on that. They have one on Space Sheriff as well. Yeah, they're really cool. Smallville is another one. Battlestar Galactica.
Yes.
Knight Rider. It is. Because David Hasselhoff demands it. And of course, Thomas the Tank Engine. Oh yeah!
Choo choo, mother effers!
So continuing on, we'll.
Hello, baby. Never be wrong to be Space Dandy. Sorry, resist. You always gotta find a dandy. Space Dandy. Say it right and don't get it right, and you'll be dandy.
Hey, it's been up inside out all day. I noticed that when we went back to the hotel and just, oh shit.
I know you remember making an announcement. I know I hate that horse. All right, now. 27 to number right now. 27 now. Top weapons. Fighters ready? No, you're not. Other side. Now you're ready. Not to me. You guys I didn't see anything caught on him at all. I heard something. Did you? I heard something. Yes, he caught him on the leg. So that's my second judge. He was willing to give up his arm, so if you want to give up your arm, the judges did not fall anything about your arm. Fall on him. Got him? Okay. In here. Triple five! That was a good ball. 0. Reset. 1-0. No. Yeah, I should be in the death hand. 2. Bound. Fighters ready. Hajime. You got your sword. Hajime. Fighters ready. Hajime.
Okay, when you get a number, I'm not against like okay, I'm just saying. Please.
Yo, guy, I got caught on the nose. He's talking and flirting. Hey, stop flirting. Hey, I'm fine. 0. Now. Top weapons. Fighters ready.
No show, no say it out loud. What are you gonna hit?
See, he's like him. That's not.
You don't need to yell. How about you come to him and say, hey. Was that hard? Now bow. And then go out. I got it away. 29, 33.
I waited for one day. Hey.
Did I do that?
No. I didn't. 29, 33.
29. Get you to Top weapons. Fight today.
You're gonna come spell with us.
I thought you were talking about it's like, oh, look at the time. Oh, my leg broke.
My sword broke. May I go home?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh no, isn't that unfortunate? My sword happened to and they're just gonna
You might have thought
Leg. One, judge.
Dead leg.
Continue.
You are building it my cutting fluid right now.
I know lots of random. Please, need a 2, 1, winner! You don't want to watch this fight, everybody? Shit! I saw you get him. I saw him get him. I think he was going for this. I think if he's aiming this and he got clean. It's not a better time. You're close. I was like 100. Top source! Ready? Let's do 25-11. 25-11! Get Queen to the Blu-ray! Hey there, my Tsunami Generation, and welcome to another interview here at AnimeNEXT 2014. I am here with 3 wonderful gentlemen. And before I butcher all their names horribly to the point of where they throw me out a window, I'm going to let them introduce yourself, starting with the man on the left.
Flex my skills at defenestration.
I was going to throw that word out, but
yes.
you just threw it out the window.
Sorry. I'm Charles Dunbar, culture lecturer, literary editor, jack of all trades, master of absolutely nothing. And I write for studyofanime.com, and I go to a lot of conventions.
I'm Daryl Surat. I write for Otaku USA magazine, still in print, entering its 8th year of publication when they said print was dead. I'm also 1/3 of the Anime World Order podcast that's over at animeworldorder.com, and I've been doing panels and being an anime fan for, over 10 years now. I certainly got into anime, in the 90s. That means, we're coming up on a quarter of a century of Japanese cartoons and comics and all that good stuff. It's been quite a ride.
And I'm Gerald Rathkolb. I'm another 1/3 of the Anime World Order podcast. I do panels all the time at any convention I can get to, and I do not write for anything at the moment. And so I just have been doing the anime thing for at least since 1989, 88, somewhere around there. So it's been a long, long time for me.
By anime convention standards, we're all elderly statesmen because we're in our early 30s.
I'm 28, so do I count?
No.
No, I'm not quite there yet.
Until that digit shifts to a 3, you are a kid.
Yep.
I'm still a kid.
Which makes you young for a sci-fi convention.
That's right.
About
Yes.
20 years.
Half the age.
Like 20 years, yes. Oh God, I'm dreading that now. Because I already feel old. But, we're here. Have you guys enjoyed AnimeNEXT this year?
It was great. I've never been to the convention before. Charles is certainly a veteran of AnimeNEXT. This is our first time in New Jersey. This is our first time at this convention. It's definitely been a lot of fun, a lot more walking than we expected. I guess the some creative changes in venues means that there's an entire other hotel that we didn't even know existed, which is probably a good thing that we got straightened out on that, because all of our panels are in that other hotel.
Thank goodness it didn't rain.
Yeah.
If it had rained, this convention would have been dead in the water.
Oh, I've been here when it rains. Oh, it gets interesting.
Last year.
I wasn't here last year.
Oh, that's right.
I've been here when it rains, and when it rains, that little path between the exit and the DoubleTree turns into a skating death trap.
Oh my!
I was last year. The tropical storm hit on Friday. Dude, it was.
I was in Ohio last year.
We've had tropical storms hit on Sundays at anime conventions.
Yeah,
in Florida.
Daryl and I went to a convention in Atlanta, one of our favorites, and a hurricane was hitting Florida, so we couldn't get back home.
I was stranded.
We were stranded. We had to stick around on Sunday and leave Monday morning. That was interesting.
I think I was stuck even longer.
Were you?
I don't remember anymore.
This year for me was blizzards. Between Otakon Vegas, flying out ahead of the blizzard, between Katsucon, driving down the day ahead of the blizzard, and Ring of Fireworms stuck in Chesapeake for an additional day because of the blizzard. This year I've had 3 cons that I've had to deal with blizzards.
Mother Nature.
Climate change is real.
Climate change.
Mother Nature, we love thee. Speaking of forces of nature, let's go to our first question, shall we? And I speak of forces of nature because I ask, what is anime to you guys?
A series of tubes. No.
Are they the same tubes that George Carlin speaks about?
Probably. You know,
Dennis Wolfberg's tubes. Fallopia.
Comedy, action, sci-fi,
martial arts.
I mean, that is like, everyone asks me the question, what is anime to you? What is anime? And you can give the textbook answer, or you can give the fanboy answer. And for me, I'm always giving the textbook answer. So today I'm just going to say anime to me is interesting. It's awesome. It's still exotic in many cases. It's fun. And, you know, it's unconventional. And that's why I like it.
At its best, anime is my main form of entertainment that I consume.
It's not a common statement that you'll hear from too many people. But, I do agree with Gerald. Anime, Japanese cartoons, they're a medium of expression that sort of appeals not just to my inner 5-year-old, but also my outer 30-some-year-old, because it's, at best, to me, I believe Japanese animation is a visual tour de force that gives you sights and sounds that you've never experienced before. That's not to say that they're, not subject to tropes and conventions and cliche and what have you, but when I go to anime, it gets me on a visceral level, that reptilian part in the back of my brain that's like, yes, this is great. Mm-hmm. It's also very engaging when it wants to be, intellectually. You can delve as deep into some of these things as you want to. I guess so for a lot of people, anime is a way to make that paper. So, those two sentiments are sometimes at odds with each other, but,
when they work together, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, when
people
they
can make money
combine.
and I can be entertained and enlightened and enjoy myself, that's the best.
Well, you said something very important. You called it a Japanese cartoon. For me, anime is stylistic, hand-drawn animation that follows certain codes and conventions. It's stylistic. The backgrounds have a 3D depth to where you feel like you can go into that world, as opposed to a cartoon where it's more like it's a set, it's a play, it's a sort of 2D plane, and though you're in a location, it's not a location you can explore, which is one example, and there's many other, from how the story is treated, to the art, to the voice acting, to the music. And for me, I see anime as something that can be done anywhere in the world, which brings up my next question for you guys. Do you guys think there is such a thing as American anime?
Well, I categorically disagree with your assessment of what you define anime to be, because it's so limiting. I think, nowadays, as digital animation techniques are becoming the norm, as hybrid 2D and 3D CG are, becoming the standard digital paint. Even a great show that just seems to be the most popular at this convention, Kill la Kill, is a hybrid of 2D and 3D CG animation. And, there's also fully 3D CG works that are, getting there as far as theatrically, but as far as television, I think some of the best Japanese animated comedy is that. For me, anime is a medium. You can't really define it by any one particular drawing style. I can give you any number of different Japanese animated works that vary wildly in visual and conventional appearance and approach to how they handle narrative, all of which would rightly be classified as, quote, anime. So I don't believe there's such a thing as American anime, but I don't believe that there's a dirty word to be said in calling something a cartoon. I think a lot of the sentiment for people who want to make American anime is because their perception of what cartoons are is informed by, toy commercial style animations from the 1980s, Hanna-Barbera, Tex Avery, Clampett sort of things, for which they want to say, I'm doing something different from that. Invariably, they seem to always ape the conventions of, boys shonen comics, things vaguely like Naruto, things vaguely, for children ages 9 to 12. So I don't believe there's such a thing as, quote, American anime, even if you draw something like, say, Avatar or the Teen Titans Go. But I also don't think it's a stigma to call them a cartoon. I just use anime as a shorthand for a point of origin. And I think that's better for everybody because there's some fantastic American animated work coming out right now. We're in almost a renaissance, I would say. And I really just don't want to have people write things off just because, that's a cartoon, or this isn't that, this is American anime. I don't want to pigeonhole things that way.
I think an easy way of how I like to say it is if we say a French movie, not the language, the culture, a French movie. Can Americans make a French movie? Possibly, if you went to France, you made a movie in France for the French people, that would be a French movie. And I think in the same way as just replace the word anime with a French movie, that's kind of where I stand.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly always exceptions. Michael Arias of Tech on Concrete,
He made anime. He went to Japan. He learned it. He went to the studios. He worked on. It
was entertainment made primarily by Japanese creators, primarily for a Japanese audience first and foremost. And so give that a name. But there's a lot of people, a lot of younger folks who are drawing their own comics, who are perhaps making their own animation projects in school. And they really want to use anime as sort of a marketing sort of buzzword to reach a younger demographic, maybe a more gender diverse demographic than some of the typical comics and animation have been for in the past.
I always like to point out to two or three shows if you want to talk about American anime. One of them is Exo Squad. I like to point out Exo Squad, the general idea of when it came out, the general story structure, the general tropes they borrowed were very much like watching American Mecha. I like to point to Batman the Animated Series, because Batman the Animated Series, you were looking at more experimentation in what they were doing. Some of the animators there were fans of what was coming out of Japan. Batman Beyond, they pulled in one of the art directors worked for Miyazaki. They used a lot of the same Korean animation studios and Korean animators who worked on the anime at the time. And I pointed them not so much as American anime, but as a sense of a globalizing world, where now the influences are coming, and now that the world is shrinking, at least in terms of technology and trade, now you're seeing these influences spread. But whenever influences spread, you always sort of evolution or interesting take on the subject matter. So while anime, one could say, is Japanese, the influences and the inspirations and the styles, they can be reinterpreted by a different culture, because Japan is Japan, America is America, France is France. Look at Isao Takahata. People will call what he makes anime, but he is heavily influenced by French film. He's very heavily influenced by French animation. Hayao Miyazaki doesn't want his films to be called anime. He wants them to be known as animation.
Yes.
So you're looking at the way that people will call Spirited Away an anime, but when you look at how it was made and how the stories come together and how all the influence that went into it, it is still animation. So the world is getting smaller.
Batman's a perfect example. I think it's an excellent case because certainly the earlier episodes were outsourced to Japanese companies such as Sunrise. Several of the more memorable key animated sequences in some of the more famous episodes of the Batman the Animated Series were Japanese key animators. They didn't have much say in the storyline or the plotting or anything, and most people, if you said, is Batman something created by Americans or the Japanese, the knee-jerk reaction would say, oh, Batman is as American as Superman. So you bring up an excellent point also, now that as the world is globalizing, all this animation is being outsourced to Southeast Asia, Korea, and then Korea got too expensive, and now things are going to Indonesia, to India, and so on and so forth. But the creative talents, for what I consider what makes something American is who actually is making the creative decisions on these things. And you're right, there are some things where there's a hybridization. You maybe have an art director, an animation director from another country. Masaki Uwasa has been working extensively with Koreans on staff. Chung, if I got that name right, and if I butchered it, I'm sorry. Extremely talented lady. And
he also worked on Adventure Time.
Yeah, as of this week, there'll be an episode of Adventure Time,
an American show, very American show.
Yeah, by Masaki Uwasa. So I believe, it gets a little too complicated if you start trying to break something down by storytelling convention or, something pertaining to its narrative or visual look, because then you start getting into, hey, what about Roughneck Starship Trooper Chronicles? What about, aforementioned Exo Squad, which, like you said, incorporated so many of the narratives of Japanese animation that for the toys they decided to tie in Robotech to Exo Squad. That's a difficult thing if you don't try to keep it simple, and that's why, when I say American animation, I mean primarily creative talents in America, Japanese primarily created in Japan. It's an easier, more workable definition.
And he brought up a good thing about globalization, and there's a great segue into what I feel our next question is. But the globalization is, I don't consider cartoon a bad one. I love cartoons. I love Looney Tunes. I grew up on Looney Tunes. But Looney Tunes isn't anime. Looney Tunes is cartoons. It's a certain sort of, it's like, I look at it more like theater styles. Like different ways of cinema. And while it might not be possible for somebody to create a French film if they're not from French, there are certain techniques of the new wave that, the new wave style was very popular, and the Japanese took the new wave style and made it their own in cinema. And that's, I think, a large part of globalization.
I think one part of the problem with your definition is that if I were to ask you, can you name a set of conventions or some sort of element that it must fulfill in order to be considered anime or not, I could pretty easily find, a counterpoint example of something fairly well known. And that's why, it gets to be a very messy semantic argument for things, and I'm not that interested in people getting very tangled up in these arguments, because it factionalizes our fandom, and we see the trends now. Everything is coming together, and in some ways anime still hasn't fully come into that fold, or maybe more than some other ways, and I think this regimentation is maybe a part of that, or the attempt at it.
Well, that's why it's a theory. That's why I call it, I have this thing I call it the, named after Walt Disney, I call it the Walt Disney theory of animation categorization. There's three core disciplines. There's live action, stop motion, traditional hand-drawn, and then modern CGI. And then it goes into each one has individual styles into it. And again, it's a theory because there's always an exception to the rule. But as we said, globalization is one of the things that leads to this. And that's, I think, one of the things that's sort of hurting the anime industry in a way is there's a huge audience here in America, but it seems that, for one, the Japanese corporate they're seemingly more worried about how anime does in their country and not enough worried about the American fans. And do you think that sort of the corporate aspect of anime in Japan is too stubborn to understand how to evolve anime successfully here in this country?
I think it's an issue of logistics as far as finance. Certainly we see this in America all the time. If a film comes out and doesn't do very well here but does very well internationally, it's still oftentimes considered a failure because the money made internationally doesn't entirely go back to the original creators. It has to be divided up amongst the localizers and the publishers over there. And so it's quite possible, the way that the numbers break down, that a Japanese series that sells, that magic 80,000 Blu-rays to a hardcore group of otaku in Japan, that could bring in more revenue than something that isn't very popular in Japan, but is wildly popular internationally around the rest of the world. It just doesn't become financially profitable for them. That's just the way that the contracts are written, the way that everything is sort of broken down. I don't think it's an instance of the Japanese are myopic and they can't see. It's a risk.
There's no incentive to take that risk for them. It's not written to incentivize them financially to make things that are of interest to anyone outside of Japan.
Right, things like the works of Satoshi Kon or Redline, or some various films that didn't really get much recognition in Japan, but internationally around the world were widely acclaimed. Those didn't really get seen as things that were particularly profitable. In fact, when Satoshi Kon died, they couldn't secure the funding for his next movie. Yoshiaki Kawajiri, one of my personal favorite directors, made one of the most popular anime known throughout the world, Ninja Scroll, but it wasn't popular in Japan, and to this day he can't get the funding to make the second film. And I don't think it's because the companies are stubborn or that they just don't see what they've got. I think it's just
they actually don't see that money.
Yeah,
they really don't see it. It's licensed over. They get their tens of thousands or maybe $100,000, and that's it. If it sells 10 million copies, they don't see that.
No. We know this because there was a lawsuit where some of these contracts were made public, and we were shocked to realize that a lot of times the Japanese just get a flat fee, and then whatever amount that they sell, they still just made that flat fee for the licensing, regardless of success. Any ideas?
One of the things I always ask when people say about the anime industry, it's the anime industry is very focal to Japan, and do American companies care, like Daryl said, with what their properties do overseas? Most of the time, they don't, because they're doing something. When you export something, you're making it for your own people, and if it exports out, fine, but you're making it for your own people, and if your own people don't want it, then you're not going to look at world culture. We're starting to see in television now. Like I was reading a lovely article about how NCIS is more popular overseas than it is in America.
So that's one of the most popular television shows in the country.
Yeah, but it's more popular overseas than it is here. So they're building up. They're making these sequels. They're like making these spin-off shows, knowing that the international market will keep it afloat. But it's a gigantic experiment. They do not know if it will succeed or not. But the fact is, they're counting on the international market to keep the show going.
But also, what those companies have got, the company that makes NCIS is a gigantic international conglomerate,
and they can afford to take.
Anime doesn't have.
They can afford to take that. They probably even have ownership or stakes in a lot of those companies that show it overseas.
You hear a lot of stories about Japan saying like, "Oh, it's quaint that Americans like anime," or that when you say to someone, "Oh, like a creator, I loved this," and they give you this look and they say like, "We watched that." There is certain disconnect, and that disconnect does influence what happens later. But, I mean, Daryl's totally spot on with the logistics. If the logistics don't work, the logistics don't work.
They have to keep their company afloat and pay their people, so they do what pays the bills.
Yeah, I mean, much as I'd love for Japan to wake up and realize, hey, all these cartoons about, little sisters wanting to have sex with their older brother, that really isn't going to fly outside of like that small core group of people. But their response is always, yeah, but that small core group of people will pay $80 for 2 episodes. You always kind of wonder, is it going to be like the American comic book model in which the direct market sales are driven by a small group of hardcore people very heavily invested in what Batman is doing this week? And, even though these movies come out and are seen by everybody, those people don't then go out and buy comics. It's
the market.
We're going down that similar path.
I'm concerned too. I think both, you turn to the comic book industry, as a comic book fan, I think both have to expand. Unfortunately, as much as I'd like to go into the next question, which is a sticky topic of harem and etching.
It's a subset.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we are out of time, so guys, I want to thank you so much. I hope you guys are back next year because I want to talk more with you.
Well, we're always available. I mean, again, our podcast is AnimeWorldOrder.com. I'm on Twitter at DARYLSURAT. So we're pretty easy to get to. We can always continue this conversation maybe over Skype, maybe through email. There's any number of ways thanks to the social media revolution.
Magic to the internet.
And I'm found on studyofanime.com at studyofanime, and I'm doing a bunch of conventions. So Usually if it's on the East Coast, I'm probably going to be there. I'll be at Anime Mid-Atlantic, I'll be at Otakon, Kineticon, Anime USA, I'm even doing the aircraft carrier convention. So
Nice.
I always am willing to sit down and talk with anyone about anything.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to be at Otakon, probably at Anime Week in Atlanta. Certainly not as many as Charles there.
I'm insane though.
And you can find me on Twitter at Gerald, and it's GERALD_AWO. And it's AnimeWorldOver.com.
So thank you guys so much for spending some time for me, and thank you, my Tsunami Generation, for spending time with us here at AnimeNEXT 2014. So until next time, my Tsunami Generation, stay golden.
Thank you for coming to AnimeNEXT.
Tsunami's back, bitches. Wait, did you say Tsunami's back, bitches? That's the official hashtag if you missed it. To celebrate time's return to television. Yeah, Tsunami's back, bitches. Wait, did you say Tsunami's back, bitches? That's the official hashtag if you missed it. To celebrate time's return to television. Welcome to the anime action fan sanctuary, with Tom providing that slick commentary. The other king of television besides Mary, full of new shows and classics on the itinerary.
Well, that about does her. Hope you enjoyed it. This is Tom, signing off. And until we meet again, you know the rest.